Welcome back to Urban Voices Radio. I am your host, Brad Harrison. We're back with Sean Marker. What's up over there, Sean?
What it be like?
And look, we have a very special guest in the building today. We have Mr. Waymen Eddings in the building.
What's up, everybody? It's good to be here at Urban Voices, my friend.
Okay, now let me introduce Waymen. I'm sure you guys know who Waymen is, but for those who don't, Waymen is currently running for U.S. Congress, Kentucky District 3, correct?
That's right.
Now, I get confused when it comes to these districts because I don't necessarily know what that means.
Absolutely.
So when you run for U.S. Congress, you represent certain districts of the city. Is that how that works?
Absolutely. So it's state is divided into districts.
Okay.
You get a U.S. House seats based on the population of your state. So whereas in the Senate, you run statewide, and they just have alternating dates.
Okay.
In the House, they divide the state up, and then you run inside of that district. And essentially, District 3 is most of Louisville, except for the far east end.
Okay. So let's get into you. Is over the years, I guess it's been kind of controversial because you actually are a Black Republican.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I used to give you kind of static for it back in the day a little bit. Mm-hmm. And as of now, not so much.
Wow.
Not so much.
Wow, man.
And not saying I'm a Republican or even a Democrat. Actually, at this point, I don't know what I am. You know what I mean? At this point,
both,
I want to say that I'm kind of, I think like a lot of people, I'm kind of disgusted with politics as a whole right now. Well, with representation that we currently have.
Absolutely.
And what I notice is that for Black people, for the African American community, we've been married to the Democratic Party since maybe the 60s, I will say.
Absolutely.
Since civil rights. I was born into it, like a lot of us were born into it. And it's just what we do as being African Americans. Lately, I've been looking into both parties, and I'm not happy with either party. I'm not happy with our representation from Democrats. And the reason I say that is this is how I feel. And I'm sure I'm going to get some backlash for this. But this is how I feel. This is how I feel from doing the research. African Americans, in my opinion, are the most loyal group of people to the Democratic Party, hands down.
No question. And that means, I think that they admit that a lot in the party as well, over at the Democrat side. So
that means that 80, maybe high 80s, 90% of African Americans probably by default are just going to vote Democrat because that's our particular party.
Mm-hmm.
With this being our party, I feel that for at least the past 40 or 50 years, there have not been any direct policies that benefit African Americans directly. There may be policies where there's an umbrella policy and kind of everyone fits inside these particular, and everyone benefits from these policies, but there's nothing specifically that I've seen directly to help Black people. And over the past 40 years as well, which we've had a vast of things that contribute to the condition of our community, but we've had the crack epidemic, we've had systemic racism, we had all of this, right? But for a group that votes in the high 80 to 90%, I would expect you cater to these particular people, and I haven't seen policies specifically catering to African Americans.
I think that that's a great setup for this conversation, man. I really appreciate your insight. I think that you're correct. I was also born into the Democrat Party as a young man who grew up in the inner city in America. Most all of us are exposed to those policies and those politicians. What I found, however, when I started getting really active in community organizing and seeing how decisions were made, I almost immediately identified why what you said is true. And it's because of the quality and the focus of leadership. That's where politics intersects with the outcomes that you're talking about. Politics is just an avenue. It's an avenue for leaders to help make change happen. And if the quality of your leader is failing, or if they're otherwise corrupted or otherwise bought out, then the result of the politics in your local community and on the national level will not serve its highest purpose.
See, I always felt like that, you know what I'm saying, here in the last 20 years, because I'm still getting into politics. I don't feel like a lot of people had to work for the black person vote, because it's like
It's
something.
default.
It's something that was inherited instead of something.
Okay, so that's my argument, right? And I blame the black community as well now, right? I said we have to burden some of this responsibility,
Right.
because if you have a party where you know you're getting a mass amount of votes from this particular group, why would you have to do anything? Why would you? You already have their votes. Why would you have to do anything? So I think as a black community, we need to, this is how I feel as black people, how we need to move. Well, no, I think black people need to get serious and look at our communities and have an agenda as far as topics or issues with our community that we need to be addressed.
It's just that simple. It's just that simple to come to the table with an agenda. And once you have an agenda, you start seeing how someone is or isn't serving your interests. They say that we shouldn't have permanent friends. We should have permanent interests in politics. And so I hope to be a friend to our community so that I can say, okay, I have an agenda that I'd like to put forward that I believe will increase the quality of life, not only in Louisville. As a congressperson, I would be putting forth policies that affect the entire nation. So it would be an honor for me to be able to look at the challenges that are faced in inner city Chicago, inner city New York, and Houston, and say, what can we do to make sure that not only my constituents in Louisville, Kentucky are experiencing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but that all folks are, especially the folks who are, like you and I, African Americans who are aspiring to live our American dream.
Okay, so here's the question now. When it comes to African Americans as a whole, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but I think I can speak for in general, right? Right, that African Americans feel that the Republican Party is not friendly to African Americans. That's in part to a lot of African Americans feel the perception is that Donald Trump spews racist rhetoric. But even before Donald Trump, the Republican Party hasn't been appealing to the African American community, and African Americans feel as though that it's a party that represents the 1% wealthy, and that they cater to policies that will benefit the rich and not the everyday working person. How do you address that?
Again, I think you've done a great job to identify the conflict. As part of my campaign, I want to defy those perceptions. Now, there's I got to say that a lot of that is based in reality. All right. So this congressional term will see William Hurd retiring from the Congress. He's a African American who represented a district in Texas successfully, a great leader. On his departing, he warned the party about its lack of friendliness to minority populations, and that it will be the death knell of the party. So it's not just perceptual. This is a gentleman who's been responsible for leadership, who has been loyal to the party, and he's giving an open letter, an open warning to the party to diversify, to increase the quality of the outreach in the inner city and the quality of outreach in the African American community. Same thing with a former Congresswoman, Mia Love, high profile African American female who represented a district out in, I believe, Utah. And she had the same warning for the party, that we need to make sure that it's diverse. We have to make sure that its interests range beyond just those of those categories of folks you're talking about, the corporate interests, the folks who are mostly white, mostly rich. We live in a very diverse country, and we absolutely have to have both parties taking care of all Americans.
Okay, so when you decided, I think it's been 5 years now that you made your conversion to the Republican Party? Has it been 5 years?
It was 2013, so it's about 6 now.
Okay, so 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
What made you make the transition to the Republican Party? And also, once you made that transition and now you're running for Congress, what particular issues are you going to address personally?
So I made the initial jump because of the issues I was telling you about before, that I saw immediately that the agenda of the Democratic Party on the local and the state level wasn't aligned with the needs and the pain that I was seeing on the streets that I lived on and that I did activism in. My interest was to be effective. My interest was to take the long road if it meant that we could make major change for the future, because nothing worth doing is easy. So I was willing to pay the price, go into the undiscovered country, and really fight for principles that are important to me. It wasn't a hard decision for me. I think we all acknowledge that oftentimes the Christian principles align pretty well with the Republican Party on issues of life, on issues of, the quality of the American family. You want to make sure that young people are growing up in strong homes. So that part was easy. What was difficult was the cultural conflict. There was also some power dynamics that are pretty tough to overcome. Obviously, not only is the Republican Party in Kentucky connected to our senators and our congresspeople, but those congresspeople and senators happen to also be some of the most powerful Republicans in the country, some of the most powerful people in the world. So that those dynamics are pretty set, right? So when you're advocating against the powerful versus those in need, it is a tough struggle, and that's the struggle of my walk in the Republican Party for the last 6 years. In particular, dealing with the Bevin administration.
So that's what I was about to ask you about the Bevin, because you was a big supporter of Bevin.
I was a
Bevin. You know what I meant. But anyway, he was a big supporter of Bevin.
Absolutely.
So how will your campaign be different? Your agenda be different than his?
So that's we go back to leadership again. Leadership is conducted by individuals. So we all on either side of the political spectrum, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have many different types of leaders, and they're bound together by a few principles. And each of us who want to aspire to be in elected office or who are in elected office have our own style, our own character in providing leadership. And I think that I'm fundamentally a different person than the former governor, but I do stand by some of the principles that he was putting forward. And though he and I might have differences in style, the substance of the leadership would be hopefully as effective or more effective, because I hope that I'm able to build larger coalitions of people to solve problems. I look at things in forms of addition. I'm trying to build coalitions around some of our toughest problems that we face. I'm going to encourage anybody to go to my website, waymeneddings.com, check out some of the fundamental interests that I want to put forward principle-wise. But also, I've been working with my friend here in the studio with me. If you want to, is it all right if we get introduced?
Yeah, definitely, most definitely.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Jason Griffith, and
I'm speaking to the microphone. So.
Apologize. All right, Jason Griffith. I'm actually with my man Waymen Eddings here. I've been in the communities for a long time. I'm actually the vice chairman of the National Parents Organization. And as we'll speak about Governor Bevins, I actually spoke with Governor Bevins a few times. He was the only governor in the whole United States that actually did a shared parenting law. And a lot of people doesn't understand how powerful that was. And when you go back in the deep roots of that dark money, you'll find out why it's very important.
So, explain what is shared parenting law. What does that mean?
Shared parenting law is basically that a judge has to look at each individual mother or father as equals, got to be on the same playing field. And then now how you cannot get shared parenting is basically if you're on drugs, anything that harms the child, whatever. But shared parenting is 50-50 equal time share. Now, there's a difference between shared parenting and joint custody. A lot of people get that confused. Joint custody just means, okay, well, I can just have some approval of my child, my children for the doctor or schools, whatever. But with that shared parenting, that means that both y'all have equal rights, equal say, equal everything, equal, and there shouldn't be no child support, but they still want to put child support because the state makes money off of your kids. So therefore, anytime that you feel like, oh, well, I'm going to get my child's father or I'm going to get my child's mother on child support, what you're doing is basically signing them up to be state property. Kentucky alone, each state gets federal money from Washington, D.C. What that federal money does, it was supposed to be a welfare recovery program. Well, the states and the lobbyists and the family courts and all that stuff, what they have done has turned into a business. So therefore, for every child that gets put on child support, that child, the federal government gives Kentucky $7.60 per dollar on that child support money. So,
okay.
for example,
say it one more time.
So look, here it is. So say if I give you, say if you're paying your child's mother $1,000, right?
Right.
All right. So that state is getting $7,000 plus, and she's getting $1,000 tax free. So if you have equal timeshare, that offsets that. It's just like,
so that means that you don't have to. Well, you say that do you still pay child support? Well,
it still goes by the
family court.
Yeah, right. How much money that she makes, you make, whatever. Right. But we're still trying to put that at zero because it should be zero unless, like, if it's. I
want to go down this family court. I'm sorry. If we can, right? But no, look, and I want to get you back up here because this is a conversation I have amongst men. We have a conversation about men's rights and how some of the system doesn't seem to fairly represent men. So that's a whole other conversation that we can probably
what connects it all is, again, going back to policies and principles. And what Jason was talking about was a governor fighting to make sure that families are stronger, that the rights of men who want to be dads are respected by our courts. When you have strong leadership, you have a positive impact on the things that are important to that leader and to the people that they represent. So I hope, back to your question about the difference between my support of former Governor Bevin and my own management style, my own leadership style. I'm a unique individual. This is an example of the type of gentleman that I like to connect with, people who have a heart for the community, a heart for solving some of our problems that have been in place way too long, reformers.
And let me just add this, my thing is everybody gets put on this little, Democrat, Republican. Look, right. At the end of the day, it's about what can we do for the community. This man right here is all about the community. Me is all about the community. Y'all two brothers is all about the community. It's about the community. Let's go get this money, this federal money, bring it back to the city of Louisville, West End. I grew up off of 12th and Hill, right across the street from Park Hill. I know. I've ran the streets in Southwick, Carter Homes, and etc. So my thing is, I was put on the team to help this young man go to Washington, D.C., fight for the city of Louisville, fight for the urban community, and we can do it. All this Republican, Democrat, okay, everybody has their own stance. Trust me, it's just like anything else. They just, it's just like a religion. Everybody just makes their own little stuff. He has a unique style. And me personally, I call him the President Obama of the Republican Party, of his toughness. He speaks the truth. He speaks from the heart, and he is a Republican. I'm a Republican too. And like, you could probably ask me, well, why'd you change from, Democrat Republican? Honestly, Republicans, especially when I was going through this family court stuff and the shared parenting, the Republican Party was the only one that stood by me. I got letters sent from senators, Republican senators. I'm reaching out to the Democratic senators, Congress, nothing but crickets.
Okay, so let me address this. So this is going to be the question that people have. Okay. This is one that I have myself as well. And I find myself, this is where I find myself at now. I find myself now that there are certain Republican policies and values that I grasp. Then there's certain Democrat policies that I grasp as well. I don't think any person is 100% believes in ideology of both parties, right? But you're running on a Republican ticket. And the Republican ticket is what you said. It's based on family. It's based on Christian values and things like that. It feels like today that we're in a climate where the candidate, or not the candidates, the representatives or the politicians are choosing party over country. And and this is on both sides. This is on both sides. So when I say that is that the Republican Party is a party of family, yet a lot of things Donald Trump says and does do not reflect those values. A lot of the Christian values, Donald Trump says and does things that don't reflect that, right? But because the Republican Party is backing the commander-in-chief, we're choosing party over country. And the Democrats do the exact same thing. I've seen it on both sides. So it's not a one party. We need to get back to a place where our elected officials are representing our interests. And if the interest of the commander-in-chief or who's ever in office does not reflect the people, then party needs to take a stance at times and call that out. But that doesn't.
So let's talk about that.
Go ahead.
The elephant in the room is the leadership and the style of Donald Trump. We're dealing with probably the end of the impeachment inquiry that will come next week because they're not going to have witnesses,
right?
And new evidence. The process of electing leaders is so important. The problem that you're describing was widely vetted during the presidential campaign of 2016. I will point out to you that many leaders in the Republican Party brought up precisely what you were talking about. Is this man the type of man that we want to have at the top of our Republican ticket? He faced 16 competitors. He beat them all. And then he beat the Clinton regime. And the reason he beat those regimes
excuse me,
was because there was a certain, in my humble opinion, entitlement on behalf of the woman who represented the Democrat Party. And when talent doesn't, I mean, when power doesn't work hard, talent's going to overtake it. Donald Trump had a talented campaign. He had a hungry campaign. And what I believe the other side had was entrenched, corrupted leaders.
And the general public, as well as a lot of Democrats, did feel that there was corruption on the part of Hillary Clinton. Whether that's true or not, that was the perception that was out there.
Absolutely.
I thought it was a bad choice to run with Hillary as opposed to Bernie being at that.
But a lot of people agreed with you because they voted for Bernie time and time again. So the beauty of our system is that the people choose. Now, we may not agree with the rules that we've put in place for how our leaders are chosen, but it's worked for 200 years to this point. We've put reforms in to make our leadership more diverse. We have more women in Congress than we've ever had. We're working to make sure that we have more minority interests. We have Andrew Yang on the Democrat side running to be president of the United States. You have this Asian guy in Iowa making a case that defies racial perceptions. I've been working with Jason and the issues that we're going into this May primary with center around healthcare, immigration, race relations, including a conversation about reparations and economic development, which is particularly, in my humble opinion, the solution to the reparations question.
I believe.
So I hope that the people who are listening to this interview will join that conversation. Visit our website, waymeneddings.com. Check us out on Facebook. A lot of conversation happens there as well at Waymen 2020. I really appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you guys. Real tough questions.
Okay, well, a couple minutes left. I got two for you.
Okay.
Across America, but particularly Louisville, these are the hot topics in the Black community. Economic development, crime. Those are the hot topics. These urban communities are pretty much depleted across America. What does Waymen Eddings propose as possible solutions, or just bridges to get to those solutions for crime in our communities, for unemployment, because we have a high unemployment rate in the African American communities, and economic development without driving Black folk out? Because that seems to be the trend now with gentrification, and it's not. And people that don't travel outside of Louisville much don't realize this, but Louisville's probably at the tail end of the gentrification. It's happened. Brooklyn has happened. Detroit has happened. Indianapolis. It's going to happen whether you cry about it or not. The wheels are in place. It's going to happen, right? The thing is, how do Black people capitalize as well or benefit through this gentrification process? Because sitting on the sideline saying, "Oh, what with me? We're not going to get anything," it's going to happen. So you need to find out how to capitalize or how to at least make sure that there's Black faces in some of these places. How do you address that?
I think it starts with leadership. I really believe that we have to have the right people in elected office, but also in the private sector leading the way. When Jason was talking about his advocacy, he was doing that advocacy from the private sector associated with a charity. So if you look at the leadership that is in place in Louisville, who is accepting accountability for crime in the status of our economic development problem? I've yet to see anyone stand up and say, you know what, I've been in office for 10 years. Hold me accountable. No one is taking responsibility. And if you don't take responsibility, then you don't have title to ownership. It begins with a mindset of ownership and empowerment versus disempowerment. And, some people will call it a crabs in a barrel or a slave mentality. There's probably more productive ways to talk about it. But we have to feel that we can and we should have ownership. That should be a value that we have in our community. And right now, there are a lot of messages that are centered around race that are disempowering in the end. If you believe that this country is too racist to try to be a part of leadership or to try to reach your American dream, then you're probably going to be stunted in what you're able to achieve. So I have a message that says that America is one of the greatest countries that's ever existed, and that it is a truly exceptional nation. And that as the children of the descendants of American slaves and other immigrants of African descent, Asian descent, Indian descent, people from all over the world, we all have the opportunity that anyone has. Now, that is a vision. To make it real, though, you need to have strong leaders. So on the economic development tip, I would work to make sure that we have people in place. I'll give One West and the Urban League credit for what they've tried to bring to leadership. And then you need the federal resources behind them to make those visions a reality.
And I say, too, you got to learn to help these young folks change their mindsets. It's all about mindsets, and especially, too, like in these schools. Like I went to Fairdale High School, and you had magnet programs, you had trades, whatever. Now trades is out the door. You know, let's get these trades back here. Let's make these young teenagers, make them feel like they can achieve whatever. And the role models, we need more mentors in these urban communities. It's almost like everybody has forgot about the urban communities. Everybody talks about it, but they're not delivering. You know, you got to change that mindset. And that's what I want to do. That's what Waymen wants to do. And, you know, and I truly believe that, you know, you got to keep God first. God. Amen. And, you know, and just pray for these young kids out here to have more leaders. So that's my message. All about changing that mindset.
So, we got to get about it, man. We out of time.
Man, I got here one more question.
We're out of time.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Do you have urban
agenda?
I mean, a lot of people talk, like you said, a lot of people walk the walk, but never, you know what I'm saying, talk the talk, but never walk the walk. Is there a urban agenda?
I think that there's nothing but an urban agenda. The district that I'm running to represent is an urban district. So everything that I'm talking about,
I guess you said there's a black agenda. Don't you say?
I mean, you know, cater towards black people. You know, I mean, a black.
Because urban can be twisted into city. You know what I'm saying?
My bad. I should have clarified. Cater to more black, because you know a lot of these other groups have had legislation and everything to help cater to their demographic. Is there anything catered towards black people?
I think that I lead that way. That's my perspective. That's the way I grew up. So the problems from the black African American urban perspective guides my activism. It guides my perception. But we got to remember that the district is about 50-50. So we're going to build these solutions. We have to build coalitions that are bigger than just the African American community to get this legislation passed through Congress and to get the support of people who run our local government and our state government. We can't be so myopic that we don't understand how it all interconnects. So I believe that my skill set is adeptly tied to being able to have a broad conversation between activists and elected officials in Washington and, you know, on 32nd Street if necessary. So
I'll tell you what, I want the same thing in the west end of Louisville that Middletown has, all the east end of Louisville has. I would love to see a library built smack in the middle of the west end. That's the things that we want to do, you know. So we're not going to just talk about it. We're going to do it.
That's what I'm talking about.
We got to
and I approve this own message.
Thank you guys for coming in, man. You can check him out at waymeneddings.com.
Yes, sir.
waymeneddings.com. Check out the website. And even if you're on the Democratic side, if you're on the Republican side, everyone's invited up here. I just say take a look, see if you're interested, join the conversation, and take it from there. Appreciate you guys, man. Check out Urban Voices every Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. And we are out of here, people.